Hi there, welcome back to my tiny music channel. In this episode, I was going to ask you to talk me off the ledge, but it's too late. I've already jumped. A few days ago, I called my best friend Brian and told him I was thinking of selling most of my hardware synths, keyboards, and modules. I've actually been thinking about this ever since I did the studio tour, and I did a mini purge of some hardware at that time. The following have to go: the Roland Juno 106, the Roland D70, the Roland D550, the Akai AX80, the Korg Poly 800 Mark II, the Alesis QS6, the Alesis QS7, the Alesis QSR. But wait, there's more. The Korg WaveStation Mark I and the Korg WaveStation AD. I almost forgot. I'm also going to sell one of the Roland XV88s. That's 9 keyboards and 3 sound modules. I told Brian I was keeping the Kronos X88 and one Roland XV88, plus some other gear that I'll get to in a moment. The X88 and the XV88 will be the controllers for all the software I currently own and some software that is on my shopping list. He asked why, and it's simple. Software sounds as good as hardware. Nobody can tell the bleeping difference in a mix. Also, I don't care about the experience of twisting knobs on an analog synthesizer or even a digital synth. I got over that years ago. Plus, my Kronos works really well as a control surface. My focus is composing, and I can do it with software. Brian gave me some good advice, and most of it was what I already knew and was expecting. He said that he knew that I was romantically connected to some of these keyboards, as many of us are with classic gear. What I'm talking about here is the sentimental attachment. My Juno 106 was my first polyphonic synth that I purchased brand new in 1984. Am I really going to be able to give it up? More on that later. What about the Akai AX80? I purchased one new in 1985, sold it circa 1995, and repurchased another one about 8 years ago because I had instant regret after selling the first one. Didn't I learn my lesson? Will I be able to sell it? We'll see by the end of this episode if I can be strong, because I'm going to tell you everything that's already listed. One thing that Brian said to me that I wasn't expecting was that there was one keyboard on this list that I definitely shouldn't sell. I was surprised by which one he identified. Which one do you think it would be? He said, don't sell the Yamaha DX7 2FD. I thought it would be the Roland Juno 106 or the Akai AX80. Those are the classic analogs. But no. He said that the DX7 is a classic and companies are still putting FM sound tech into modern keyboards. I acknowledged that fact, but countered that I have Native Instruments FM8 and I have a Kronos which will load and play DX7 patches. I actually did an episode where I compared my DX7 2FD to Native Instruments FM8 and the Korg Kronos. You can watch that episode for the details, but the fact is that the FM8 and the Kronos are 95% to 98% successful on reproducing DX7 sounds. That's good enough for me. More than this, I started weighing the pros and cons, and I basically came up with a top 11 list. I know this episode isn't titled as being a top 11 list, but I have a top 11 list in here. Here are the pros and cons I came up with for selling all this gear. Number 1, I rarely use a lot of these hardware keyboards anymore. Number 2, I'm tired of the older classic units not working when I do want to use them because I'm working on a project. Number 3, the constantly failing voice chips on the Juno 106 are just one example of grief and expense I can live without. Number 4, replacing the stupid CR2032 coin cell battery that can take up to an hour on some keyboards and modules. You know, they could put a little panel on the back of modern keyboards so you could just replace it yourself. Number 5, buttons, switches, knobs, and other controls failing. Some of my classic keyboards and modules are 30 to 40 plus years old, and these switches and knobs are always failing on me. Number 6, the expense associated with repairs and maintenance, like recapping a power supply. I recently did that and it was relatively easy, but I burnt the heck out of my index finger. Number 7, the downtime of hardware, when I can't repair it myself and I have to send it out to a tech. Admittedly, I just said I don't use most of these keyboards much or at all anymore. But I like to keep them working, and that's driving them to the tech and picking them up later. It's time away from composing and other activities. Moreover, it's a $150 bench fee just to start, even when it's only replacing a 50-cent part. Number 8, a lack of total recall. Yes, I can send patch changes and MIDI CC to external hardware, but it's not as convenient as software, especially on the classic gear. Most of that classic gear doesn't recognize CC. Number 9, with software I can run as many instances of a plugin as I want. With hardware, it's just the one thing that I have. Number 10, updates are simpler with software. I log into the company website from my PC and choose the update. Hardware devices require more steps like cables or copying files to a thumb drive or a SD drive, inserting it into the hardware, and then rubbing your tongue while you pat your head and use your nose to hold down Control 4 or 410 and press enter. I think I'm just through with all that crap. Number 11, space. Keyboards and modules take up physical space. Software doesn't. You may be able to think of other pros and cons for this list, but that's enough to tell me I need to take action. If you come up with some other great pros or cons, I'd like to hear them in the comments. That would be helpful. Let's look at the best pros for keeping the hardware. This is just a list of 3 items I came up with. Number 1, my emotional attachment. This is a very strong, legitimate reason, and I know I'm preaching to the choir for some of you. Still, my first love, who held my hand when I was 7 years old, that was a very strong emotional attachment, and I got over her by recess. Perhaps I wouldn't miss the Juno as much as I think I would. Also, after my last purge of keyboards and modules, over 20 plus of them about 7 years ago, I felt seller's remorse for some of them, but not anymore. I don't miss any of them from a productivity standpoint. There may be some lingering sentimental pain, but I can deal with that. Number 2, my studio won't look as cool or as professional. I've spoken to people at music stores and they've told me that they watch XYZ YouTuber because they are impressed by all his modern and classic hardware synths that they wish they had. I'm sure that's not the only reason, but I've heard that over and over again. That's interesting, but it's just not me. There was a time when I had 27 plus sound modules and 18 hardware keyboards, but I'm over it for all the cons I've already mentioned. A substantial reason for me purging a lot of gear back then was due to me getting into using more software. My issue today is that I still have a lot of hardware and I'm just not using it. Some of that gear is sitting in closets or under beds, gathering dust. As the CR2032 battery drains away, components fail, and it becomes worth even less money. Other gear in the studio is taking up space, waiting to fail and gathering dust. And the same problem with the battery. Number 3, most software has no resale value. At least with hardware, you can get some of your money back. This is a really big pro. And this is what I'm trying to do right here, get some of my money back. One reason I decided to create this episode is that I knew it would make me think more deeply about this issue and that I might actually take some action. You may have seen the studio tour episode that I published. I can't believe it was December of last year, 2024. It's 7 months ago. I purged some keyboards and modules at that time, but I didn't cut deeply enough. Also, those modules had been sitting off camera in a pile for the past 7 months. It's only in the last couple of days that I moved them into my dining room, which is where I move gear when I'm serious about selling it. From the purge 7 months ago, there are 2 Lexicon MPX 500s upgraded to 550 specs, an Alesis QSR, an Alesis Quad Reverb, 2 Motu 2408 Mark Is, and I took 6 or 7 keyboards and placed them under beds or in closets. The mixer I removed when I went mixerless is packed in its box. It had been sitting on the floor in my studio, right over there, taking up space and getting in my way for almost the same amount of time. It was there for about 6 months. I just moved it into the dining room yesterday. All these items should have been sold months ago. Admittedly, I've been busy and other things have happened, but it's time to take action. Here's the plan and what I've done so far. Only half of the keyboard on the Roland D70 works. If you remember that episode, I pulled it out to do an episode on it to tell you what a Titanic of failure it is, and half the keyboard was dead. One of the traces needs repairing, but I'm not going to do it. Cosmetically, it's mint, and it should be on reverb by the time you watch this episode. The QS6 needs a minor repair, and I'm going to do that when time permits and give it to a friend who needs a replacement for his dying controller. The WaveStation SR and the WaveStation AD are already listed for sale on Reverb. I've decided to keep the WaveStation keyboard, at least for now, because I do play it from time to time, and I do know that I would miss it. The next item is painful. The Akai AX80. Was I able to list it? Yes, it's already listed, and I'm getting a lot of interest on it. I'm keeping the second Roland XV88 for now, but I'm selling the Roland XV5080, and it's already listed. I'm keeping the QS7, maybe, because it makes sense to have an unweighted keyboard in the studio, and 76 keys makes it even more useful. I've considered selling the QS7 and keeping the DX7 F2D or DX7 2FD. As Brian told me to, he said, don't sell that keyboard. I'm not 100% sure right now, and neither of them are listed yet, but I'll make a decision on that soon. I have my reasons for keeping the Korg Poly 800 Mark II for now, but the plan will be to sell it before the end of the year. The two Motu 2408 Mark Is are currently listed for sale on Reverb. The two Lexicon MPX 500s are listed for sale. I should mention that everything is local pickup because I don't want to deal with shipping, but I might change my mind on that. I know I'll make less money and it will take longer to sell the gear, but I don't care. I just really don't want the hassle. But like I said, I may have to rethink that if some of the gear doesn't sell locally. The Alesis QSR and the Alesis Quadriverb are listed for sale. The Yamaha O1V 96i digital mixer got listed yesterday. Last but not least is the Roland Juno 106. What do you think? Do you think I was able to let it go? Yay or nay? I had truly planned to let it go. I haven't played it since I did the birthday episode on it when it turned 40. That was over a year ago. That was June of 2024. I see excellent condition Junos listed on Reverb for $2K plus, and they have dings, scratches, and cracks. I guess they mean excellent condition for being 40 years old. I'm the original owner of mine, and it's a 9.5 out of 10 based on their scale. I also paid about $300 for the acetone treatment, which included installation of sockets for the voice chips, so you can replace the chips yourself if one fails. It's really handy and I've used it. I started to get choked up about all the sweat equity I have in the Juno and the memories of playing in 80s bands. I really do think I should sell it, but for now, the Juno is staying put. I have a lot of work ahead of me selling all the other gear, but I'm motivated to get it done. I've already listed 12 items for sale, and there will probably be more by the time you watch this. It should earn me a couple $1,000s, and then I'll decide what I want to purchase. When all the selling is done, I'll probably post a follow-up episode to talk about how I succeeded or failed with the big purge of 2025. There are at least another 10 pieces of rack gear that I don't use and should sell, and I'll probably get those items listed too. There are 2 ADAT XTs, there's 2 MJC8 MIDI router switchers, there's a Digitech vocal processor, and a bunch of other stuff. Moving forward, I should just buy only what I need. Otherwise, I'm going to be back in this same situation again. And you know this isn't the first time for me. I've done other purges. Some of you may not understand how incredibly painful it is to let the classic gear go, especially the stuff that I've owned for decades. But I know some of you do. I'm conflicted, but I'm also optimistic about the future and how new software might inspire me. I'm truly not sad about this purge. Look at the smile on my face. It's a step forward, and it's overdue. Also, new hardware isn't completely off the table, but I'm going to be very selective on anything I buy from this point on. No longer will sentimentality play a role in that decision. I realize I haven't purchased a brand new keyboard in over a decade, and that would be the Kronos, and really it was secondhand. A guy won it when he won the singer-songwriter competition at Guitar Center, and he happened to live in San Francisco, and he's a guitar player, so he didn't want it, so he sold it to me for a really good price. But the last one I really purchased brand new was the XV88, the first one I purchased. That was the year 2000. I really deserve something new. At least I think I do. But that's no reason just to go out and buy something. Anyway, your comments are appreciated. If you think I'm crazy for selling the AX80 or any of this gear, you can tell me. I think some of it I might have listed a little too high, and maybe that was me subconsciously not wanting to let it go. It's not like I'm selling the XV5080 for $10,000 now. It's in the ballpark of what other units have sold for, and they give you guidance on the website. Anyway, that's it for now. I look forward to reading the comments, and it's nice to hear when other people might have gone through purges too. So if you've done that, I really would like to hear it. I've gone through several of these. This is like my third. Anyway, thanks for watching. I really do appreciate your time. I will be back in another episode soon. Take care.